Cereal commercials are one of my greatest interests. They're just so fascinating for some reason. I've always been something of a cereal enthusiast. It's actually the opening to my dating profile. That's how serious I am. If you don't care about the post-Fruity Pebbles Extreme Pinkover of 2006, I'm sorry, it's not gonna work out. It's not me, it's you. Honestly, I'm not that big into eating cereal nowadays. It's too sugary for me and I get kinda sick eating it, but I still follow cereal marketing pretty closely. I like to stay on top of important world events. And in 1965, the world was introduced to something called Apple Jacks. They had this Apple guy promoting the cereal who would sing a funny little song.
You need new Kellogg's Apple Jacks. Apple good for breakfast or snacks.
On the box, he's an actual apple with Apple Jacks for eyes. This Apple guy looked pretty cool, but sadly in the 70s would be replaced by these kids. This was fine, but regular normal kids are a severe downgrade to a singing Apple Man. And then came the 90s, where they decided to have no mascot. You know who buys a cereal without a cool, marketable character? Old people. Every era of Apple Jacks was less interesting than the last. What would be next? Just a green box with the words Apple Jacks on it? In 2004, Apple Jacks would see yet another rebrand. It was all riding on this. Kellogg's didn't just need a win, they needed a win-a-mon.
Here I come, I am Cinnamon.
And what would come next would be the most iconic and inspired era of the cereal, the Apple Jacks Adventures era. I know it sounds silly to say that some cereal commercials changed everything, but they really did. So let's talk about the lore of this new Apple Jacks universe they've created. Whenever you pour a delicious bowl of Kellogg's Apple Jacks cereal, Cinnamon awakens with a
Here I come, I am Cinnamon.
Cinnamon races to the bowl to deliver the taste of cinnamon to the cereal, but not without opposition. Gone are the days of the jolly old apple guy singing about nutritional information. This ain't your grandpappy's apples, this is a cool new millennium apple. The no-good bad apple races Cinnamon to the bowl, usually cheating to get ahead, in an attempt to fill the cereal with the disgusting taste of apples.
Oh yeah! Apple Jacks don't taste like apples. Because the taste of sweet cinnamon
It's the winner, man.
This was huge. The old commercials told you about how appley the cereal is and how good for you it is or whatever, but this is 2004. This is a post-Rayman 3 Hoodlums Havoc for the PS2 and GameCube world. The new marketing tells the kids what they really want, and what every kid wants is the taste of cinnamon over apples, unless they have a severe cinnamon allergy. In every commercial, the healthy food was the villain trying to stop the cool, awesome taste from reaching the bowl. Bad Apple had a lot of fun schemes, like making that cinnamon disguise or the flying helmet. I love cereal commercials from the 2000s because they were basically just short 30-second cartoons. The character designs are great, the art style is wonderful, but sadly, this wouldn't last forever. Karu, the children's advertising review unit, kicked down the door and said, hey, the apple can't be the bad guy. Kids are gonna hate healthy food because he's being mean to the cool cinnamon stick, and the kids really like the cool cinnamon stick. For a time following this, we would see new commercials that didn't feature the bad apple, like the limited Double Vision cereal or the Spy Spoon promotion, where you had a cool secret spoon that would help you find Cinnamon's path to the bowl on the back of the box. It was good stuff. They were doing Cinnamon-only commercials to buy time, but that wouldn't last forever. These commercials worked because of the dynamic between the two main characters, and in 2007, that dynamic would be forced to change. In a new commercial, Apple and Cinnamon are racing to the bowl and crash into each other, getting stuck together. For the first time, the two would be forced to work together to reach the bowl of Apple Jacks. This wasn't a one-time thing, this would be the series' first story arc spanning multiple commercials, known as the Crashers Saga. The limited Apple Jacks Crashers would release with these commercials, because cereals just love their weird limited-time shapes. I would watch these during my cartoon commercial breaks on Saturday mornings on the edge of my seat. What was gonna happen next? They would eventually become unstuck after buying an unsticker online, and going forward, the two former enemies would become equals. Friendly rivals who would race to the bowl. Truly the Goku and Vegeta of cereal commercials. They even have a fusion form and everything. This keeps the original concept alive while showing nice character development. It was really the best case scenario, and I like that they found an in-universe reason to make these forced upon changes make sense. Plus, this adds a little more suspense. Who's gonna be the Winamon? It could be anyone. The two are now friends and will have more advertisement adventures. They drove cars to create the crisscross limited shape. Seriously, what was the deal with these limited shapes? What kid was like, Mom, Dad, new Applejack shape dropped. We need to go to the store immediately. Yeah, that was me. I was that kid. The full Applejack storyline could be split into 3 separate story arcs. The initial Bad Apple Saga, the Crasher Saga, and concluding with the Big Apple Saga. Apple uses a transporter to zap them directly to the bowl, but it messes up, accidentally sending them to a big city. The remote breaks and our 2 heroes are stranded. While I would greatly miss the cool aesthetic of the Applejack's world, this new location had a lot of pretty good material. Seeing Apple and Cinnamon interact with objects in the real world was cool, and they had some pretty awesome cereal bowl races in the big city. Of course, the Gliders commercial has the new Glider cereal shape. They were doing 50 limited shapes a year at this point. Speaking of which, Applejack's clones. They go into a store and see boxes of Applejacks, and they meet a bunch of other apples, and now you have to go to applejacks.com to help Cinnamon find the real apple. And this is actually a perfect segue into talking about the Applejacks website, because what would any cereal in the 2000s be without an online flash game presence? There were a bunch of games and little animations with the characters racing, and by playing the games, you could unlock clips to use in the Mashup Maker, where you could create your own videos using pre-existing animations and voice clips. I really bought Movie Studio when I could have been using Applejacks.com all this time. Most of the Flash games are really simple, but I do miss when companies would make these to promote literally anything. Truly a lost art. That scuba diving game was pretty fun. You can even send fan mail to Apple and Cinnamon, and read mail that other kids had sent. Cinna, I love Applejacks. I just finished eating honor of their cereal, and I love the spy tool. The Jacks got the bling bling in cereal. Come see me sometime, because I am one of you biggest fans. Hola, I love the Jacks. I had some this morning. Yum yum. Here is a cheer. Let's get to it, Jacks. Come on, let's eat it. Yum 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 yum, eat it. Hope you like it. This archived version of the site also has a survey pop up, and the window is called Kellogg's Cinna Island. Apparently this place from the commercials had a name the whole time, and that's why you always have to check the old sites for products. In the 2000s, everything had hidden lore on the website for some reason. There's not a whole lot left to say about the Applejacks commercials at this point. In the early 2000s, animated cereal commercials were at their height, but the next decade they would really start to fall off. Applejack still does plenty of new variants, but it's kind of a shame that there's not a ridiculous lore reason for Applejack's marshmallows or Applejack's slime existing. Imagine the commercials we could have gotten for Jumbo Snacks. These are just Applejacks, but big. Like 15 years ago, this would have had the coolest commercial. The last animated commercial they did, as far as I'm aware, was for 2013's Cinnamon Jacks. After the break, we'll talk about Cinnamon Jacks, the Cinnamon hat controversy, and the tragic end for these characters. Go grab a bowl of cereal, we'll be right back.
Hey, Apple and Cinnamon. How would you make milk more fun?
With Applejack cereal straws, Mom.
Remember Applejack cereal straws? They did these for a bunch of different cereals. You drink the milk with the straw, and then you can eat the straw. There was an Applejacks commercial for these, but it's not considered part of the Applejacks canon. This isn't a story, there's no Cinna Island, no race to be the Winamon. This is very much a regular commercial that happens to star Apple and Cinnamon. I still felt like it was worth mentioning. The final Applejacks commercial, as far as I can find, was a commercial for Cinnamon Jacks in 2013. Yeah, Cinnamon got his very own short-lived spin-off cereal, and he does a cool little dance to promote it. He ditched that bad apple after his controversial past and went off on his own. Cinnamon was clean, controversy-free, right? Applejacks needs to stop by Spinner the Scribe on Medium.com, posted in 2016. So here goes, and not for the last time. How the hell does Applejacks think it's still okay to be hawking its generic semi-sweet cereal using a Jamaican stereotype? I was in the grocery store the other day shopping when I happened upon a box of Apple Jacks. I was gobsmacked by what I saw. Staring out at me was the angry Apple Man and the cool Jamaican cinnamon stick that everyone remembers from their childhood. The cinnamon stick is depicted as a rascal without a cause, a terminally casual zombie who is laid back to the point of nihilism. What are his aspirations, his interests beyond surfing and skateboarding? We will likely never know, despite the fact that we've had nearly a decade's worth of exposure to his mythos. Now, every single comment on this is absolutely tearing this guy apart, but honestly, this is the funniest thing I've ever read, regardless of how serious it's meant to be. In November 2020, I noticed something in the cereal aisle. Cinnamon didn't have his iconic hat. In recent years, they've changed his name to simply Cinnamon, and stripped him of all racial stereotyping. There was never actually a big controversy or any huge outcry against Cinnamon. The only thing I could find was this random article. I think they were just looking at this 15-year-old character and decided it was probably for the best to play it safe. And a lot of people are really mad about cool Jamaican cinnamon stick erasure. The only thing I'm mad about is how bald he is now. Please give him a new hat. I mean, look, they had to completely change Apple's character before, and that worked out pretty well. I'm sure they could do something with new Cinnamon, but they never really did. I can understand that they wanted to take away elements from that character, possibly to avoid offending anyone, but they didn't replace those elements that they took away with anything new. The modern Cinnamon's just boring. He doesn't really have much going on. The weird Nickelodeon slime Apple Jacks doesn't even feature the character on the box, they only have Apple. The past few years, they've slowly been retiring the character. Which is funny because 15 years ago we were in the exact opposite situation with Apple. Which brings us to November 2022. Apple Jacks has been all over the news for several reasons. First of all, people have been saying that this new Pokemon looks a lot like Cinnamon. Personally, I think it looks a lot more like the string cheese mascot, but I love them regardless. More importantly, they changed the Apple Jacks mascots. I thought this was fake when I first saw it. I had to run a reverse image search, and then I found the artist's website where they had done other cereal-related artwork. Distraught, I emailed Kellogg's, and they confirmed this. Tad, thank you for your question about Apple Jacks characters. I can confirm that the Cinnamon character has gone through change. Like many of our other cereal mascots, it was simply time for a change. I'm sorry, the what character? Here I come, I am Cinnamon! But I had to see it for myself. After rushing to the nearest grocery store, sprinting to the cereal aisle, I saw it. This was real. After nearly 20 years, the beloved Apple and Cinnamon had been retired. Now ultimately, this doesn't really matter. It's gonna be the same cereal that it was with the old characters, but there's been a lot of outrage over these new designs. And, you know, I could sit here and talk about how this is a disgrace to all cereal kind, but I don't really want to do that. First of all, I have nothing against the artist who is hired to make these characters. The art itself is fine. It's just watching brands slowly turn to generic, boring designs with little to no personality is always sad to see. But instead of complaining about a new drawing of an apple on a cereal box, I'd rather spend my time celebrating the time we had with the old drawing of an apple on a cereal box. I really admire a lot of these old cereal commercials. You can make a simple ad telling you about a product, but to make a story with a unique setting and characters, that's just cool. In the 2000s, every cereal, every snack that smiles back was doing this, but very few did it better than Apple Jacks. A cool aesthetic, an ongoing storyline, an iconic jingle, memorable characters who are both slightly problematic for their own reasons. But aside from just Apple Jacks, these kinds of commercials don't really exist anymore. Even Pebbles doesn't do the ads with Barney stealing Fred's cereal these days. While the new designs are pretty generic compared to what came before, in my mind, this era had already ended a long time ago. And if you want to relive it, those commercials are still out there on the internet. It's kind of funny seeing these commercials all in chronological order now, because the last true Apple Jacks commercial saw Cinnamon losing Apple in the city. The next time we saw him, he would be back on Cinna Island celebrating his own apple-free cereal. You know, maybe if you had all gone to applejacks.com to help Cinnamon find Apple, we wouldn't be in this situation. In preparation for this, I bought possibly my last box of cool Apple Jacks with the old designs. I also bought the Apple Jacks Jumbo Snacks. These are those giant ones, because I have no self-control. But the point is, the ambition of Apple Jacks marketing, beyond the commercials, could even be seen on the box itself. On the back of the box, there's all this artwork with little mazes and hidden object games. So much work goes into the art on these. I have such an appreciation for the people who work on these things. I ended up buying a box from These Imposters too, and weirdly enough, it has the exact same comic on the back, but with the new designs. It's really bizarre. And seeing the two compared side to side like this, it does make it a bit hard to not miss the old characters. Well, thank you, Kellogg's, for 18 years of funny marketing, I guess. I think the only thing to do now is to pour a bowl of Applejack cereal.
Here I come, I am Cindy Man.
He's real.